Apparently, dead ninja bodies were not uncommon in New Jersey. The police had discovered them by the next morning, but the story was so unexciting, it merited nothing more than a brief mention on the bottom of all the state's prominent stations. I tried to decide whether I felt relief or concern that someone could probably get away with murder in this city so long as they had the brains to dress their victim up in a Klan uniform afterwards. It probably meant the city had a high level of costumed activity under the surface, which meant superheroes and supervillains tended to check each other, and the police tried to worry about more mundane happenings. But anyway, if my father knew I'd been up to no good the evening before, he gave no sign, which was a blessing. There were dark circles under his eyes, and I wondered what time he'd gotten home. But I wasn't so bold as to ask how his evening had gone, when my own had been over-eventful. I did shoot him a few curious looks, lest he grow suspicious of me. Soon after breakfast came schoolwork, for which I know I needed to focus. 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 Focus! Ludicrous! How was I possibly supposed to focus? I wanted to jump out of my skin and throw glitter everywhere. I wanted out into the streets. I wanted to play. I wanted to exercise. I wanted to go crazy. Many thoughts. Turtles! Arrgh! Wait. I might be able to think up a strategy for focusing. I might have a trick up my sleeve. Please read this to me. I begged my father after nearly an hour of suffering in agitated silence.
You should take the chance to practice. You've been improving.
I can't. I need to hear a voice. I just can't focus today. My head keeps going in circles. Help me. I breathed a little easier and watched the words as he spoke. My father had a very nice speaking voice, low and strong. Well, when he wasn't agitated or in costume, of course. I listened closely, and some of my anxiety and stress melted out as I began to imagine the scenes framed by the words. My fingers itched over my note-taking paper. Occasionally, I stopped him so I could compose a summary point and write it down. I was only handicapped when it came to stringing together whole paragraphs of meaning. All that black text on white paper, so visually indistinct for line after line after line, messed me up. Chemistry and math were easy. My short-term memory was pretty good for protecting small bites of discrete information from being scrambled by my foresight. By the time school was over, it was obvious my father was tired. What a blessing. Now he wasn't likely to notice all the extra energy I had. I'm thinking of going to the rec center and putting myself through the usual. But you look like you need a nap. You okay?
You'll forgive me if I take the rest of the day off?
Of course. I guiltily wondered if I ought to eventually fess up to my mistakes with him. If I was the one to tell him, he might forgive me, right? That same wouldn't be true if he found out through alternate means. Once at the recreation center, I trained at running, squats, sit-ups, and pull-ups. I pummeled a punching bag. I played at the pommel horse until my arms were shaking, and I simply couldn't lift my body up any longer. Pommel horses were different than uneven bars because they never allowed for any real rest. The gymnast had to hold their body perpendicular off the ground and swing their legs about or do handstands. That required a ton of arm strength. It was good exercise for anyone who wanted to leap around a concrete jungle like Tarzan. When I finally had to dismount, I took some big gulps of water. And then I ran through my list of my favorite exercises. So much to do, and surely that would help shake my jitters. I played on the balance beam before school let out for any of those city kids, because then it would become a very popular piece of equipment. After that were gymnastics floor exercises. I didn't care what the other people practiced at. I didn't care that rolls weren't part of regular routines. I was imagining everything was dark and made of metal and concrete. I took some time with a punching bag again afterwards. I appreciated how sparsely populated the recreation building was during daytime hours. I could play with everything and never needed to wait my turn. Heck, I barely needed to acknowledge the existence of anyone else at all. I did have to track down some employees to spot me on some of the equipment, because I didn't want to be on the center's bad side. I surmounted the rock wall, starting with the easy side first. Then I guzzled some water and started on the hard. My spotter was impressed. Much to my own disappointment, I didn't quite make it across the overhang of the hard side on my first try. And begrudgingly, I have to admit to myself, I probably pushed myself a little too hard, too fast. I let go, and I waited 15 minutes before trying again. This time, I made it around the hump. And then, well, then I finished that and checked everything off my training regimen in rather record time. Which left me with what? No, I was bored. Really bored. And still hyper-energetic! I went out to the kids' playground and dangled back and forward along the monkey bars for a bit, trying to settle my thoughts. I saw a snail atop the bars, looking quite out of place, and probably frying in the hot sun. I looped myself up beside it and took a seat, and sprinkled a little water on the small creature as I maneuvered it into my shadow. Poor little guy. Or girl. Or in between. Weren't snails hermaphroditic? As I waited for my miniature new friend to recover, I pulled out my phone. I swung my legs back and forth and mindlessly refreshed game scores. I tapped every interesting thumbnail on YouTube, and then grew bored before any video finished playing. I scrolled my contact list up and down, up and down, up and down. I stopped the scroll on the contact list, my thumb hovering over the newest entry. No, be patient, don't be weird, Anna. Wait a day at least. Don't blow this. Be patient. Back to mindless YouTubing then, in a vain effort to distract myself or think up something else to do. It was too bright out to be running on rooftops, but perhaps maybe I should go to the skate park. Or the rink? Or anywhere? Maybe I just need some food. Blah!
Hey, you're supposed to climb under those. Yeah, if you're a kid. Stop squatting on the gym. You'll scare everyone else off.
Find someone to stop me. And I wondered why it was that I only had these sorts of problems with girls. It was like girls self-policed a conformation to social structure, and I was a voluntary outcast. But then I probably oughtn't be so quick to judge people when, after only one quick glance, I'd already dismissed them and had no intention of being nice to them either.
You're just a bratty little troublemaker, aren't you?
I grinned to myself. The worst sort. So don't mess with me. Yeah, I probably ought not be so quick to judge people if that was my opener towards them. Unlike boys, who'd usually heed the unfriendly signals I displayed, the girls stayed there to argue with, insult, and shame me into submission. I ignored them until one got up close with a gleam in her blue eyes that suggested her heart rate had elevated in anticipation of doing something naughty. At that point, I scooped up the snail, leaned over, and flicked the poor shelled creature into the back of the girl's hoodie. Operation Snail Terror was effective, though. I spent the fallout just mindlessly tapping about on my phone and being frustrated with my own malcontent. Screams, death threats, and lumps of thrown sand never got high enough to bother me. They were all just so much noise. The way I just sat there, totally unfazed, probably made some of the girls want all the more to provoke a reaction out of me. But a few of them must have been more mature than the others, because after some arguing amongst themselves, they decided to leave. I heard some bitter snaps of slut and bitch, which meant nothing at all, and then I was alone again. I leaned over and surveyed the playground floor once they'd departed, and I spotted the snail unharmed and crawling off towards the garden. Excellent. I was pleased the little fella hadn't gotten squashed in the melee. My dad was right about this. Sometimes the most effective solution was the slimy, funny one. I waved goodbye to the snail, and then I looked back to my phone. Adele, snake eggs hatching, kittens, cartoons, super speedy texting maneuver. I flipped to my contacts, and before I could stop myself, I quickly tapped the newest contact. I typed the innocuous message, "Send it, wahaha!" Then for the briefest moment, I felt dread and a renewed respect for my own mania. How long ought I wait before assuming he didn't want to talk? Should I send a second message in like an hour, just in case? But a grand total of 6 seconds later, my phone began to ring. I nearly fell off the monkey bars. Then I steadied myself and I lifted the receiver to my ear. Hi?
Oh my God, what took you so long? I was starting to think you were annoyed with me and would never call.
I nearly fell off the monkey bars again and decided I probably ought to retreat to ground level because the third time I swooned while up there would surely be the charm, and I'd end up face down in the playground sand. Well, of course I'm not annoyed. I finished school and I exercised and now I'm miserably bored. Can you get out?
Shh! I'm home and can't raise my voice to talk over you, loudmouth. I'd get overheard.
Oh, sorry. I tried to tone down my enthusiasm a bit. Deep breaths.
I can only climb up once it's dark. Give me a minute. I'll at least get out of the den for now, so I don't get any surprise eavesdroppers.
Okay. Huh. You know, you have surprisingly good reception for being underground.
Have an uncle who loves technology, which is fortunate, makes this more bearable. Call you back in a minute?
I pulled my phone down from my ear and looked at it. I scuffed in place where I stood. Then I proceeded to jump about and spin and circle my arms in the air. Yes, 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 yes! Yee! I squealed my unnatural and indescribable directionless enthusiasm. And I clapped and bounced. And then when my phone started ringing again, I took a deep breath to steady myself and just barely remembered to lower my voice as I answered, "Hi." So much for lowering my voice.
I'm in the clear. Where do you want to meet? I'll head that way.
My head exploded with ideas, here, there, everywhere. But I supposed I ought to take things easy. What could people do outside after it grew dark but before the city was fully asleep? Depends how hungry you are. We could go for a walk along the river. Oh, yeah, that was exciting and fun. Not. Where had that even come from? Well, what else are we supposed to do?
Anything is better than a sewer.
I wanted to do a handstand. I'll meet you outside the Subway restaurant on Lane and Karen Street then. And Sandro, this is very important. Do you like bacon, lettuce, and tomatoes?
And mozzarella?
Gonna level with you, there's no such thing as a bad choice in cheese. But the common BLT goes best with 2 to 3 slices of provolone.
I shall trust in your expertise on the topic.
Your faith in me is moving. I was going to need to pickpocket someone if my funds were going to survive the weekend, but that was seldom hard. I just needed to find some distracted businessman yelling at a taxi driver somewhere, and there were always plenty of those. I'll call you back when I've secured the bacon, S.
Roger that, Agent Wildcard.
Hee hee.